I am Mayor Carrie Thomson. For those of you I haven't met yet, personally, I would love to meet you when we adjourn. And welcome to folks that I have met. We do these traveling town halls. Let me first just logistically say, we're holding a microphone that doesn't do any amplification. We do that for our friends at home watching on BCAT. So if any of us are not speaking loudly enough, if you can just raise your hand and wave at us, we'll be happy to amplify a little bit better. I think all three of us are pretty good at amplifying. So what we usually do at these traveling town halls is I give a little update about things that I'm working on in the city and what's sort of happening in the city, as does the city council member for your district, who is Isabel Piedmont Smith. So we'll both say a few words. Tonight I have Chief Mike Dekoff with me, and we're going to be talking a little bit about some things that concern the chief and his crew. So he's here to offer a few words and also answer questions. Then after we give you some updates, we open it up for questions. And if I can just put in a plug for being aware of how many people are in the room who may want to have their questions asked. So if you have a sort of long statement to give, maybe abbreviate it and ask your question so we can get the most information and the most concerns answered in the time that we have together. So with that, Isabel, do you want to give first updates or you want me to go first? You want me to go first. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is just a statement of the obvious. We are all in a time of extreme transition. At the national level, everything has changed. At the state level, even, things are changing. And this means that our work here locally has never been more important and hopefully has never been more relevant. And we want to be a city that really is a safe place for you all and that welcomes you and helps you belong in a community and can help many kinds of people feel safe and belong. And that is a priority of my administration. It has been, no matter who's leading in Washington. Bloomington is an incredible community, and we are incredible because of the people who live here. And so I want to thank you tonight for taking your time to come out to this town hall and invest a little bit in shaping the future of your city government and helping us to have eyes and ears in the community that otherwise we don't get to have. One of the things that that we are progressing on is the proposed relocation of our police headquarters. And I expect some of you are here tonight to ask questions or offer comments about that. We will gladly take those. As you may or may not have tracked, the police headquarters was, in the last administration, proposed to go in the west side of Showers. Showers is our city hall. That was going to be a very expensive fix that would not actually house the police for longer than 5 or maybe 10 years. That's not a long enough solution. It also was not, in many ways, an ideal solution. And so we've been looking for other places for the police department. We have looked and considered expanding the current location of the police department. That is going to be very complicated for a number of reasons. If you all are interested in those details, happy to get into them, but I don't want to talk about details that you're not interested in. So we also had a public meeting about the police department a week ago tonight, and that it has been recorded and it's available online if you want to look at the full slideshow on that. One of our guiding principles of my administration is that we will listen first, and then we will discern what the right pathway is, and then we will lead forward. And that is exactly what we've done with the police department. We did a full analysis of Showers West. We then have looked at other possible locations, including its existing location, and it turns out that we own a building at 714 South Rogers Street that is 4 stories of pure concrete. It is really a solid building, and many people might drive by and say, gosh, this looks a lot like a police department. And it's funny that that did not occur to us in the past. But what happens when we co-create solutions together is that we really can think of what could be instead of getting really sold on just one idea. We remain open to blind spots on that location and on input on how to make that better. And so we know that residents that live around it, residents that don't live around it may have ideas that we ought to incorporate into the design process. And so we're really eager to hear about those. I want to just highlight some of the things that we are celebrating after 1 year in the administration. We have restructured the pay in City Hall and elsewhere for all city employees, except for our AFSCME union, which is next. So you'll be hearing about that coming up. We really had an outdated pay system. And importantly, the police and fire contracts were woefully underfunded, and we have caught those up. And the chief can give you more updates on this, but they are those contracts being at market level pay now are having an immediate impact on our ability to recruit and to fill the empty positions. So. We also have made significant investments in downtown accessibility and pavement this past fall. Of course, we had some unprecedented one-time funds available, which allowed us to do those downtown road and ramp improvements on the sidewalks. And then HAND has done the lion's share of the work involved in putting together a new consolidated plan. Some of you in this room may have been at some of our public listening sessions for that and input sessions, and we're grateful for your feedback, and they are continuing to work on that plan now that we have finalized that public input, and so that should be coming out later this year. And then I want to talk about, boy, there is so much on my list to talk about. So I'm going to leave some of this for a lull in the conversation, should there be one. But all this to say, we've gotten a lot done, but our work is continuing, and we still have a lot on the horizon. We are really working for increased transparency and accessibility in our government. Many thanks to Paul. We had 5 residents who went door knocking in McDowell Gardens with me today to help let folks know about the new police department. We did not get to nearly all of the doors there, so I will be back, and folks are welcome to go knock doors with me, but I can't promise a spring-like day on future door knocking days. And then as we continue to work on street homelessness and taking care of our neighbors with a comprehensive plan that really seeks to get to a Bloomington where everybody has a safe place to sleep at night, as importantly is the other end of the spectrum. And so we will be looking at economic development, and specifically, how do we grow wages in Bloomington and really attract the kinds of jobs that will help alleviate the wage discrepancy and the significant rate of poverty that we experience in our community. So we need that economic development to help with the full spectrum of services, and so my team is really looking hard at that, and you can expect to hear more about that in the future. That all comes, of course, with our continued need for housing. So we'll continue to work with Summit, and importantly, Hopewell is starting to have some bids come in, so you should be seeing more tangible progress other than just the beautiful park, which I had lunch in today. So Hopewell should be coming up out of the ground here in the next 12 months.
Thank you.
It does not
amplify. Yes. All right, well, I'll try to speak up then. So I'm Isabel Piedmont Smith. I'm your District 1 City Council representative, and I'm happy to be here tonight. And thank you to Mayor Thomson for organizing these meetings. I do have my regular constituent meeting coming up on Saturday. Those are via Zoom at 11 a.m. on the second Saturday of the month, and you can get the link on the City Council website. So just a few updates on what the City Council has been doing. We did pass an ordinance that allowed for Kirkwood Avenue to be closed in part or in whole between the sample gates and South Walnut Street during the warm months for outdoor dining and other outdoor retail opportunities. So that is something that I know the Economic and Sustainable Development Department, in collaboration with our liaison to the Council for Community Accessibility, are looking at the details of that to make sure that all the businesses are still accessible for folks who maybe can't walk or bike, and then also making sure that our safety vehicles can still have access in case that's needed. But that'll be a change from last year. Of course, we had several years during the pandemic where we closed Kirkwood, and a lot of people really enjoyed the outdoor dining, so we're hoping to get back to that. And we approved it for the foreseeable future so that there's more predictability for the businesses going forward. We're also moving ahead with the convention center project. The request for bonding should come to us within the next couple of months. There are many kind of bureaucratic steps. We took one at our last meeting to confirm that, yes, we would like to have a convention center expansion, and so they're going to the legal details for that. The details are being handled by our Capital Improvement Board, the CIB. And then we are talking about merging, again, we have been for the last few meetings talking about merging 3 of our resident commissions into one commission, having to do with transportation issues. So that would be the Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Commission, the Parking Commission, and the Traffic Commission. And my hope with that is that the transportation system will be viewed more comprehensively, and will include people from the Council for Community Accessibility, from the Bloomington Public Transportation Corporation, from the Board of Public Works. So the players that really need to be on board will be part of this commission, and of course residents will be appointed as well. So it's planned to be a 9-member commission, I think. So that will be voted on this coming week. And finally, we are working on making our affordability requirements for incentives for housing in our development ordinance, making those affordability requirements more affordable. So really currently when we require 15% of housing units to be affordable, it's that level that we indicate is really kind of a joke. It's not something that people can actually afford. So we are working on making that rental rate lower for projects that use the incentives for affordable housing. Unfortunately, in the state of Indiana, we cannot require projects to have affordable housing as a component, but we can offer incentives. So those are just some of the things we're working on.
Good evening. I'm Mike Dekoff. I'm the police chief for the city of Bloomington. Thanks for being here tonight. I just want to kind of touch a little bit on the building and then obviously let you all ask questions and stuff. But when we started this process a couple of years ago, we did not realize, that's another one of the fashion show guys.
Thanks for being in the fashion show.
Sorry to call you out like that. I think it's important to know that we sought the input of the union, the administration, and everybody so far is on board with the location we're looking at 714 South Rogers. It is a larger building than we currently have. It is something that we think has a lot of potential, and everybody at the police department is on board with it. So that's one thing also to keep in mind is we need a place that we can work out of that everybody can use, and that location really fits the bill for us. So don't really have a whole lot else to say. Just kind of we'll wait for questions. If you have questions about anything with the police department, I'll be able to answer those.
So we are open for questions. There is a microphone down here. Again, it doesn't amplify, but we need you to use it for the purposes of BCAT. Desiree, do we have note cards for people who don't feel comfortable? Okay, so there's also note cards available if you would like to submit a note card question instead of coming to the microphone. If you don't have a note card already, you just wave your hand and Desiree will get it to you. And are you able to grab the microphone? Awesome.
I'm Ann Jones, and I'm a resident of this neighborhood, and I'm 80 years old. I'm proud of it. I'd just like to thank Isabel and Chief Dekoff right away at the beginning for the great work you're doing. I know that you get a lot of complaints, and I just want you to know that personally, I've experienced the kindness and professionalism of the police department while working at Trinity Church downtown with our brothers and sisters who don't have a place to live. And I've been so impressed with the work you're doing. And it's not easy, I know that. So thank you very much. And Isabel, again, I'm Ann Jones. We haven't met, but I just am stunned right now at the contrast between Bloomington and Washington, D.C. And part of that is that Bloomington is small and relatively small, and we can know each other's names. I know that. But that's not all of it. There's something going in this community that's just wonderful. So I'll stop yakking and just ask my one question. I'm on the warpath against IU Health, not the doctors or the nurses or the techs or the hospital, the business. And I'd like to put in a plug before I ask my question, a plug for the local newspaper. Without them, we wouldn't have the access to the information that, we wouldn't know as much as we do know without the newspapers. So I'm happy about that. I'm just amazed that IU Health can operate as a nonprofit when it clearly is not. Do you have any insight on that?
I'm assuming because you're making eye contact with me, you want me to answer your question. And I do have a little bit of insight to offer, and I think this is important for many of us. I don't have access to all of IU Health's books, of course. But there are changes on the horizon that I think we all need to be aware of. At the federal level, I was on Capitol Hill middle week of January, meeting with our representatives about local concerns. And I was told by one of our representatives that they were going to be making surgical cuts to Medicaid and Medicare. Those surgical cuts, when I went back to my hotel room and started researching them, are in the trillions of dollars. That's with a T. If you are not versed in Medicaid and Medicare, which I wouldn't blame you if you're not, because it's extraordinarily complex, Indiana's rate of reimbursement already is very low. And with having that funding drop much more significantly, we are at risk, I would say, of losing some of the services that IU Health does provide. And so we're in a situation right now where I really am concerned about the survival of our local health care and the kinds of services that we all need. And any community needs good local health care in order to thrive. So I am really looking for some partnership from not only from IU Health, and I think they're taking a hard look at their numbers right now. But what I can tell you is that it's a very complex picture. And so when we look at nonprofit status, what we see does not always reveal the actual costs and what's going into the healthcare. And I think we should be at least as concerned with what's happening on Capitol Hill right now and advocate to our representatives to take a very hard look before they make those cuts, because we have people who literally will not be able to access medical care, especially preventative care and things that keep us healthy, if these cuts are made. Anybody want to add anything? You can just grab it.
I have the microphone, and I do have a question, so I guess I'll just go ahead and use it since I have it. So the building at 714 South Rogers, I am aware that before this opportunity came up for the police department, there was an arts feasibility study in 2022 that had done an assessment of that building for reuse as an arts incubator and cultural center. And my experience has been that typically police departments get what they need, but when an arts project loses its space or opportunities, very often those things just disappear. So if the police department is going to be using that building, what happens to that art space that it was going to be used for?
Yeah, so first let me be clear that it was not planned to be an art space, an arts incubator space. There was no plan to do that. It was part of conversation, and we're still having conversations about where we might do that. This is a very significantly sized building, and it also needs enough repairs that if you were going to house people in it, it would be expensive, to say the least. Holly is our Director of Arts in ESD, and we continue to really have some proactive conversations about potential arts incubator, and I think there'll be news of that on the horizon. So I like to not live in the tyranny of or, because our community can have arts and a good place for our police, and I think we'll get there.
First of all, thank you for being here. And so nice to see so many young people in the audience. For 22 years at City Hall, I don't know if we ever had this many young folks in the audience, so this is great. Okay, I live on Wiley Street, 2 blocks down from 714 South Rogers. And we are an old neighborhood. There's parking on the street. Some of us have a drive. And I'll have to tell you, when First Street was closed, cars were flying through there. And if you have a car parked on both sides. You're backing out. Very cautious, but I almost got hit. I don't know how many times because they flew through there because they were upset because they didn't have the route. Also, when it snowed, we only had one lane all on Wiley, which meant you played chicken. Who was going to back up and let the other one through? It was a mess. So what I'd like to ask is, it might be too early yet, is there any plans for traffic flow once that we do have the police station there? And obviously there will be police cars having to come and go. Is there any plan for Wiley Street as to handle that kind of traffic?
We haven't discussed increased traffic flow on side streets at all yet. What I will say is that this location has ample parking, which is the first location we've looked at that actually has sufficient parking. So I anticipate that the neighborhood parking is not going to be affected. And the chief can speak a little bit to increased traffic that might happen as a result of the police department. Let me take us just one orbit back in the conversation. So where we are with this is, when I ran for mayor, I committed to not pushing forward a fully baked solution and just running with it before getting public input. And so that is exactly where we are. We had public meetings around not doing Showers West when that was being decided. We now are at the point where we have done due diligence on possible locations, and this looks like the best one. And so we are at the point where when you say, hey, make sure to look at the traffic, this is the time to say those kinds of things. So thank you for that comment. We will look at traffic flow, but I just want to assure everybody that this is the very early stage of this process, and this is where you can point out our blind spots and ways that we can improve an idea.
And just be willing to let us know. Because I'm sorry I missed the meeting last week. I'm pretty aware, and on Facebook, and I get emails from the city. I didn't see anything about that meeting whatsoever.
Okay.
So I don't know if the neighborhood was given prior notice. I never saw anything about this coming. Not that I wanted to stop it or do that, but I just want to say if we can find ways to better reach people, because I have to feel like I'm pretty connected.
Yes.
And my friend in Baltimore is the one who told me about the jail coming there. That's how I found out.
About the jail?
About the proposed jail. I said that wrong. Police department side.
Oh, okay.
I did. I said it wrong.
Yes, we have
But
no
anyway.
proposals for a jail, just to be clear. There's enough discussions elsewhere in the community about jails.
I meant the police department, but anyway, but if we could just try to do that, so
Yes,
residents
and
especially.
So Desiree
knows.
over here is our communications director. Can you wave, Desiree? We are really, especially with the newspaper where it is, which is a couple days behind, and we initially had this meeting scheduled for Big Storm Day. And so we postponed it. We are really eager to hear where people are getting their news, so that we can post things in the places that you're looking. We do try to communicate with the heads of neighborhood associations, et cetera. We do put things on Facebook, but as we know, Facebook algorithms are just wonky. And so that doesn't always mean that you're going to get them. There is a sign-in sheet, and if you sign in and tell us you want to be on our newsletter, you will get a newsletter from the mayor's office. So those are the ways that we're currently communicating. Again, open to our blind spots. I just will publicly acknowledge for the 15th time, we also are all missing Dave Askins. And the B Square and the incredible community service that he provided us, and the knowledge of what was going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Very much so.
I'll just add, with regards to traffic, I'm guessing that we probably would generate less traffic than the hospital did. We don't have a helicopter, so you won't have to deal with helicopter noises. Sirens, those are things that we can work on so that, I mean, we are by a neighborhood now. And so we're cognizant of when we leave the department on an emergency run about when we activate sirens and things like that. So those certainly are things that we can, we will continue to look
Just keeping
at.
the lines of communication open if it's that. No, it's when the hospital allowed smoking, when they started not having smoking at the hospital and they told them to go over to Wiley, that's when we really had problems.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's long ago in a way, so thank you.
I'm Sam Froschar. I'm a 40-year resident of the McDowell Gardens area, and when we heard there might be a police station, we just sort of went, yay! And the reason being, we're right near a shelter. We're also near the community kitchen, and so we get a lot of petty thievery. We get people trying to camp some places around us. We get people who strolling through our yards, trespassing, and we're tired of it. We would like to see just maybe a police presence that would kind of subdue some of that. And anyhow, a lot of us are for it. I heard a complaint about traffic and noise and so forth, and I think that's an easy one to take care of. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Could we pass around the sign-up list sign up for the newsletter while we're talking? Would that be possible?
Yes. Or you can sign it on your way out. Is that?
I just thought there might be a line to sign up.
I see. Okay. Desiree, maybe you can pass one to Ann, and she can get that going.
Hello, my name is Seth Muchler. I am a resident of McDowell Gardens. I hear you say that your administration listens first and then acts. And I hear you say that this location did not occur to you. I think that is because it was already, I know it was not promised, it was not a commitment or anything, but it had been in the 2022 arts feasibility study proposed as an arts incubator center. I would like to see that followed through on. You know, I think I hear you saying, oh, now's the time to bring up things. I mean, things were brought up in 2018 when the Urban Land Institute did its report on the hospital site. Things were brought up in 2021 when the Bloomington Hospital site redevelopment master plan was done with extensive stakeholder input. Things were brought up in 2022 when the City of Bloomington Arts Feasibility Study, which included the case study of turning this building into an arts incubation center. And so I think we've talked, you haven't listened, and I would encourage you to go back and listen to what's already been said. I also want to speak to the traffic. I see in the Bloomington Hospital site redevelopment master plan that the vision should be, Hopewell should be a well-scaled walkable blocks. On Rogers Street, traffic calming is proposed as an important pedestrian corridor. On First Street, it has little or no sidewalks, and that sidewalks should be brought in with bike lanes. This is intended to be a livable, human-first, walkable area, yet we're going to have police cars zooming through on their way to do whatever they're doing. So which is it? Is it going to be the plan that you have put forward that we have all been hearing about for years, this bill of goods we were sold? Or is it going to be a new police station and God knows what else? That's my question for you. Which one?
Great. So the question is it going to be what was ideated in the arts study and
the master plan.
Highlighted in the master plan? The answer is the art study was an art study, and it does have some great ideas in it, and we are implementing many of those ideas. And Hopewell's master plan, a master plan is exactly that. It is a high-level look at what can happen and what we'd like to happen in the area. We are implementing that residential block system. And so you will, as I mentioned earlier, you will begin to see those residences come out of the ground. It's not feasible to make this building an arts incubator. And that was decided before we ever thought of putting the police department here. So again, it's not an either
Why
or.
does the case study prove otherwise? Why did the case study say otherwise? The Trahan architects, I believe, they were commissioned by the city. I believe they're reputable.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you afterwards, but there were no prices put to that, no realistic pricing put to that, and it really is just not feasible.
Okay. The only other thing I'd like to maybe ask you to go further on is the traffic. That's a thing that I'm concerned with as a resident. That the plan says that it's going to be this very walkable, pedestrian-friendly. I won't feel safe walking. Can you respond to sort of which direction you see this neighborhood going in terms of traffic calming?
Yes, as I mentioned, we are at the very early stages of planning the police department. Hopewell as a neighborhood is moving forward as intended.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Reed Hepburn. I'm about a 13-year resident of Bloomington and a resident of McDowell Gardens. Thank you guys for taking the time to listen to us. I'm just curious if somebody could provide some background as to why there is a need for expanded police presence in Bloomington at large, why there's a need for a new headquarters. In my experience here in 13 years in Bloomington, it seems to have a disproportionately large police presence for a city of its size. I know some of that has to do with the fact that we have 2 police departments here. But yeah, I'm curious as to what is the thinking behind expanding our police presence and why there's a need in the first place for a new police headquarters to begin with.
Great question. I will answer the high level and Chief can answer the details. So the new headquarters has nothing to do with expanding a police presence. Right now, the headquarters are frankly substandard. They're not accessible. They meet pretty much 0 accessibility standards. There is a cistern in the basement that I don't want to tell you what it holds. And there's flood damage that hasn't been adequately repaired, and it's going to just continue to have drainage problems. So, so that building really just doesn't suit for a police department. So I want to be clear about the why here. We're not moving because we're going to dramatically expand police presence in Bloomington. We do want to get to a point where we're fully staffed, which we have not been in 8 years? Probably longer, 10. Yeah, 8 or 10 years. So I'll let the police chief answer some more detailed questions or fill in the blanks for me, but it's very clearly not to expand our police department.
So we're in a building right now that was built in, I think, 1965. And it is, as the mayor said, it's not accessible. There was an original plan for an elevator, but the elevator was never put in. And then we're just out of space. We're authorized 105 sworn. We have about 160 total employees. And there's just not space. We've taken every usable space that we could in that building and divided it into an office, very small office. Some storage rooms have been made into offices because we expand other parts of the department. The sworn officers haven't increased in several years. But what happened a few years ago is we had a major flood. We had about 6 inches of water in the basement. And what that did is it soaked into the walls. So we had to do extensive renovation to repair that, but it still leaks. Not to the extent that it did when we had the major flood, but the walls still seep water and the floor still seeps water. And so we've had mold issues. So it just, you get with water and stuff like that, what happens. Parking is gotten much worse over the last several years. The space around the current police department, apartments have gone up, so street parking is not really available. And so there are a lot of times when you come, especially at shift change, if you come in, cars are just parking in front of other cars because there's not space for all the cars to get in there. I mentioned the office space. Part of that it creates a really difficult working environment, especially when you're trying to talk to victims. If you don't have a private space to be able to do that, it makes it really uncomfortable for them. And so we just don't have the facilities that we need to just be able to do our basic jobs day to day.
So, to be clear, there's no intention then in expanding the police force beyond its current numbers?
We're 15 down. It's going to take us a couple years to get back to 105. So we're not expanding it any time in the next several years because we have to get back to where we were originally.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Matthew Kloss. Remember to
You can take
project.
that out. So, yeah, there you go.
There we go. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Thanks for being here. This is great. Town halls are really a good way to connect with the community. It's nice to get to engage with community leaders in this way. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so used to working from home and just having to have my 6-inch voice for the microphone. I'm just saying I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the canvassing earlier, just door to door. That's great. It's just a good way to connect with people and really make people feel like humans. Along the lines of the community connecting with the police department, I look forward to how the police will become good neighbors. The traffic is, of course, a big issue. The neighborhood is pretty small. The roads are in pretty bad condition. I know as we add more housing, we're going to have more issues of additional traffic patterns, additional water issues. There's going to be more utility problems. There's going to be more jobs needed in the area. Hopefully we'll get more development economically. And I look forward to seeing how the police will encourage that in a healthy way, and also how the community can participate. I haven't had any that I know of, at least no outreach from the Bloomington Police Department yet in the neighborhood. I've been in McDowell for 4.5 years now. I haven't had any. Maybe I've just missed the community meetings and cookouts and that sort of thing, but. I think that's going to help people understand a little bit more about how having a good police presence will be good for the community. But we have to be sensitive to the concerns, especially as some of our sort of national issues are coming to a fore and people are seeing a lot of police brutality on the news, a lot of, a loss of community policing and a more of police feeling like sort of an invading force in a way. So I think that's something to think about as we plant a police department in a building that's going to be there for 50 years or more in a brand new neighborhood that doesn't yet exist. I think we need to think about how to integrate all of these new people and new sort of social and economic forces. It's going to be difficult, and I hope that we take the time that we need, and more community outreach like this is going to be helpful. My question is kind of related to utilities. I wonder how is Bloomington planning for climate change in the long term? How are we looking at how we're using the resources that we have related to the reservoir, related to utilities improvements? I know we've had a bit of work done on our sewage system. I think the impact on the B-line was pretty substantial, and I wonder, are we going to see more of those sort of infrastructure upgrades as we go in the next 15, 20 years? What's the plan? Are we thinking about growing? And you talked a little bit about investment and how can we sort of partner with some of our commercial investors, I guess, the people that we want to come in and pay taxes. So how are we going to not overextend ourselves, I guess, especially as we have a lot of people who are unhappy about annexation, and of course as the city is going to grow over the next 20 to 50 years, the police station may need to grow again, we may need to annex again, and utilities are going to be strained, especially water and power. So those are kind of the main issues that I'm concerned about. So,
Matthew, rich commentary. So let me. You are invited to tell me if I miss something.
sorry, that was a lot.
But the first thing I want to say is thank you for your ideas about being a welcoming neighbor as police. I think they were great, cookouts, et cetera. And so we're on it, and thank you for that feedback. I'll let the chief talk more in depth about real community policing. Frankly, we've been so understaffed that it's really, just doing the bare bones of critical safety has been on their horizon. But again, once we get to that staffing level, and I think we can do more of that, and I think others in the administration can help facilitate some of that so the police can just show up instead of having to plan it and do the outreach themselves. And it sounds like having somebody canvassing as well from the police department might be appreciated. Mike has volunteered. I actually had a sort of dual reaction, like what are people going to think if the police are knocking on their doors? So it sounds like you're invited, Mike. There's willingness there. I want to talk about CBU, the utility. We are currently doing water resilience planning, not just for if we grow beyond capacity, but also it's important to have a backup plan. We have one source of water, and it's a surface water. So we're in the process right now. Our utility is incredibly proactive at stormwater planning, much to the chagrin of some folks when we are doing projects that may impact a neighborhood area or something like that. But we really have to start working upstream to mitigate that stormwater and manage it. And our Title 13 work has been pretty expansive, and we're planning on continuing that. I'm happy to get you more details about infrastructure improvements, et cetera. And I know Kat Zeiger and her team are really open to talking to residents. So if you want to follow up with me afterwards about specifics that you're interested in, we can be sure to get them to you. Did I miss anything?
I asked a lot of questions. I appreciate the feedback on that one, yeah.
Did I miss one that you wanted me to answer?
Also, like electricity power is
Yes.
a big one, and how are we going to ensure that we have sort of a more, I know there's a sustainability committee already, an environmental committee, and I wonder how is the city working with residents, working with investors or with corporations that exist, IU being a big one, Baxter and Cook and Catalent. How are we talking about, expanding electricity availability? Are we talking about decoalifying at all in Bloomington or in the state as a whole? Are there any partnerships with the state on that?
Yeah, so as folks probably know, we don't own the electric utility. That's Duke. We do partner with them, and we stay in very close touch with them. They, of course, did some major improvements, the big new power line. And we are continuing to encourage obviously alternative sources of electric, and our sustainability committee, our commission does amazing work. So do track what they're doing. And unfortunately, I saw today that Duke's rate hikes are going into effect.
Right.
So we're
hurt a
all
lot of
pretty aware of
Bloomington.
that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So any sort of projects like that, I'll talk to the various commissions, and hopefully the police department, if they move in and want to put up some electric panels over the parking lot or something, that would be nice.
Right on. Solar panels.
Nice. Yeah.
And thanks for answering your door in the middle of the day. Sorry to interrupt your work.
Yeah, I was having lunch. Sorry, it took me a while, but yeah. Thanks.
And our Director of Utilities, Kat Zager, actually is a McDowell Gardens resident, so you can talk to her as well.
But maybe not at home. Let her have some peace at home. We're not encouraging that.
I won't give her out her address.
Hi, I am daughter of an immigrant and a big supporter of immigrants in the county. I've spent 25 years here translating professionally, but for free to immigrants. I'm not sure everybody really realizes how incredibly huge is the immigrant underpinning, silent and overlooked, of our economy here in this county, as well as the vibrant entrepreneurship amongst immigrants with their food trucks and stores and restaurants going on. So it's really important to me, and I think it is to all taxpayers and residents here, to find ways to protect immigrants in this horrible climate that we have suddenly inherited. And it filtered down to the state of Indiana, of course, because Governor Brown just mirrored the mood of the nation by demanding loyalty oaths and so forth of law enforcement. So my question is this: what can you do, Chief Dieckhoff? I know I'm a big supporter of Sheriff Marte, and I know he's in a very difficult bind right now, but I'm a supporter of his principles. What can you do, Chief Dieckhoff, to convince and encourage your detectives and officers to be very cognizant of the heightened vulnerability of immigrants at this time, and to avoid getting them shot into the maw of law enforcement that could lead to the deportation of people who are otherwise incredibly law-abiding, meaning a broken taillight, maybe a speeding, maybe not having their license on them or something. So I would ask you, what can you do to give greater assurances to the immigrant population here?
So we don't enforce immigration law as a local law enforcement agency. We're here to keep everybody in the community safe, and that's what we will continue to do. We do outreach with some of the agencies that support immigrants. I had a meeting, what is today? It was last week, with an agency that does a lot of outreach, and we talked about different ways that we can get out information and that we can make those communities feel safe. That's my job, is to make people feel safe and keep the community safe, and that's what we will do. Again, we don't enforce immigration law. That's a federal function. So I'm very cognizant of that. My officers are very cognizant of the fear that people have right now, and so that's why when we talk with agencies that serve those populations, we make it clear that we're here to protect them too. Because the other concern that I have is that they will become more victimized by all of this, by people who will see them as an immigrant and think that they can commit crimes against them. And so what tends to happen is reporting goes down. But again, we are here to protect them as well as everybody else. So that's why we've encouraged the agencies that we've been talking to make sure that if they're not comfortable calling us, to have you call, so that we can try to make sure that they stay safe as well.
I appreciate that very much. I would, though, just ask very specifically, ICE and Governor Brown are demanding that you cooperate with them in their enforcement activities, which are not necessarily focused on the worst, as they claim. They actually are going after people in these raids all over the big cities. At least half of those taken in the raids have never committed a crime, and yet they're still being swept up. I mean, if ICE walks up and asks you to help them go into a hospital, a school, a church, or, or other place, or some other place, what do you do? How can you push back without losing your, obviously, without getting arrested yourself? What can you do to not cooperate with ICE? They are not enforcing the law properly or decently. They're enforcing it by ideology, and that's not any good for our people here.
So one of the things that we're doing is we're making sure that our officers understand what the statutes actually are and what we can and cannot do. Again, we do not enforce federal immigration law. That's not our job, and we're not gonna do that. You know, with Governor Braun's executive order, and it is encouraging local law enforcement. I've talked with chiefs across the state of Indiana, and none of them have any interest in doing that. So I think that, you know, we've been through this before when he was president. You know, we're very cognizant of the actions that local law enforcement takes and the impact that that has on immigrants. And that's why, again, I totally understand that they are afraid to talk with the police, but that's why we're doing all kinds of things to make sure that we talk with the agencies that help them and serve them, to let those people know that they can let the people that they are serving know that we're here to help them and protect them as well.
Thank you, Chief.
So we just have time for about 2 more questions. So if you've been waiting to ask your question, now is the moment. All right, run to the microphone.
I can't run anymore. I'm Denise Valkyrie. I live in the Broadview neighborhood. I'm the president of the Broadview Neighborhood Association, and we appreciate everything that you all have done. I see it. Thank you. And we appreciate everything that's been going on and that you've done, and these meetings. I hear the concerns about moving the police station over onto Rogers at First Street, but there was a hospital there, and there was more traffic than the police station I've ever seen it happen there. That's just my personal observation. You are a little noisier. Because I've also directed plays in that park right behind you, and we have to stop, you know, and wait for you guys to get through. But the fire department's helping you out with that too. So I think that there are ways that we can work together. Yeah, to be a little quiet when you're leaving the neighborhood, because it is a sleepy neighborhood, you know. And they've been enjoying the quiet since the hospital's been gone. There's one fellow who was convinced that everybody was out to get him, and we haven't heard a peep from him for a while. So that's been great. I'm concerned about the environment as well. I'd love to see a solar panel on every roof, on every house, on every building, and let's just do it. But it's going to take some more time and somebody with a Henry Ford attitude to get that done. I don't know if that's here in Bloomington. But we do have space for affordable housing, and I did read something about affordable housing for seniors and a plan for that. It was just kind of a blip in the wind, and it's something that I would like for the city to see through a little bit more. There are neighborhoods in Nova Scotia and in Denmark and other areas in Canada that are specifically for seniors with no barrier sidewalks and that are contained so that people who are living with cognitive disabilities wouldn't wander away, and then we read about them in the news 3 or 4 months later. So that's something I would like to see us start to work on and see if we can't fast forward it. I'm also very terrified about what you said about ways that we're going to find to provide health care for people who live within our community. So I'm not making up a question, really. I'm just making some statements here about things that I know that we're concerned about and would like to hear more coming back to us, and how we can help you achieve those goals as well.
Right to all of your federal representatives in Bloomington. Those are Senator Young, Congresswoman Houchin, and Senator Banks. Tell them that you're concerned about the Medicare and Medicaid cuts and that it's going to do damage to our local healthcare system. This is the way rural hospitals disappeared. And so it's a very real challenge. And my experience, I know IU Health is a big organization. We have an incredible leader here locally who is showing up and working some hopefully pretty phenomenal solutions. And I think right now we need to look to them to partner with us to make healthcare here accessible to folks and as affordable as possible.
Hello, my name's Evie, and I want to echo what many people have said. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thanks for holding the town hall and for showing up. I am here because I'm concerned about having this new police headquarters in a residential area, particularly an area that already houses a lot of the social services in this community. We're talking Centerstone, Indiana Center for Recovery, Friends Place. And I think that when I first learned about the Hopewell neighborhood, I saw this as an opportunity to create a space where people do feel safe, and where these communities who are most disenfranchised can live affordably with the resources and the services that they need. I think particularly with the changes in the administration and potential funding cuts that we'll see to these critical services, we're going to see a lot more people in our community who are struggling, who need these services, and might not be able to access healthcare or services for like recovery, et cetera, et cetera. So I also want to say that police stations don't make people feel safe. Spaces for community and spaces where people can gather, that's what makes people feel safe. And I think that Hopewell has a potential for that. Rather than seeing this really incredible building go to a police headquarters, I would love to see more creativity that is responsive to the community's needs, based on past assessments, and that allow people to gather and not be scared of potentially being arrested. And so I guess my question is, what sort of outreach and communication are you engaging in with the social services and the people who are doing that provision of services, especially in that neighborhood? And what do they have to say about the expansion of police presence in that area?
So I'm doing a lot of engagement with the social services throughout our community, but also, in that area. And, this is still early days, but so far it's 100% very supportive. They're really glad to have the police moving there. The police have long been good partners. The chief has implemented many really innovative programs, so that, for instance, we have downtown resource officers who are visiting the camps every day and helping people get their needs met, and really building trust and helping to serve different populations. So I continue to do outreach with social services. I spend a lot of my time there, and I'll continue to as this moves forward.
As someone who engages in these communities and I have a lot of friends who do these sort of jobs. I have friends who go into the camps very regularly and do provide really essential services and are not seeing a lot of city support in their day-to-day. And yeah, I don't know. Are you talking to agencies other than Centerstone?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. All right, well, I know that we're running out of time, so I'll stop there.
We are hoping that certainly it's, I think, the goal of the administration as well as council that Hopewell will have those community spaces and will have affordable housing, at least the oldest building of the hospital, the core building, the one that was not torn down. There are plans, I think, moving forward to have affordable housing there. And of course, there's already community space that's opened up recently right next to Kroger in the Hopewell neighborhood. So I'm hopeful that there will be community engagement, community spaces in this new neighborhood. That you're right, that's what builds safety, that's what builds trust among neighbors. So I think there's some good news ahead in that regard.
Thank you.
I'll also note, because we didn't address the housing spectrum very well during this meeting, so thank you for highlighting that. The core building is already, now it's funded and it's starting to progress, and so that is 100% affordable. The reason that you haven't seen any verticality at Hopewell yet, any buildings going up, is because when I came into office, we started looking at what was possible at Hopewell and what the income levels really were going to be. And they frankly were out of reach. And so we have done some significant work to try to make those more affordable, or at least to get a better mix of income levels into Hopewell. It's not easy to do that in this climate. And I think we're going to get some really great housing there, and I know the chief has a vision for some community accessible space in the police department, and quite frankly, we're hearing from a lot of people who do feel safer when they're closer to police, and so I just want to highlight that that as with everything else, people have their unique experiences, that some of which are shared with others, and our role at the city is to try to meet as many people's needs as possible as best we can. And so we'll remain really open to ideas for how to improve this project, and really want to thank you all for coming and investing your time in the city tonight.
Say one thing, if that's okay. I'm sorry. Is that okay?
Sure. Can you come to the microphone?
Sure. Great. Okay, it's not one thing, but that's. I'll try to make it as brief as possible. Okay. Oh, you guys, this is precarious. I'm gonna do my best. Okay, I'm coming down. Okay. Hi. Okay, is this loud enough? Okay, great. I'm gonna do my best to project without screaming at you. So my name is Megan. I live on West Wiley Street. I've been a homeowner on West Wiley Street for 8 years. I have a number of concerns about the police station coming in, and I would just really like to have a chance to just state what those concerns are. Number one is that I actually used to live on South Washington Street, and it was so loud with the police cars zooming by at all hours of the night with their sirens going in a residential neighborhood that I ended up actually moving, right? So I genuinely, on a very basic level, just concerned as a resident of that neighborhood. We have a quiet neighborhood. We have a neighborhood with a lot of walkability, with people that have a lot of kids, pets, right? I think of it as a very safe neighborhood to walk in. I am very concerned about having police cars zooming through, because I've already lived in the residential neighborhood where police cars were zooming through, and it was very disruptive. The other thing is I work at home. I'm a mental health therapist. I work at home. I also rely on Medicaid. Thank you for the shout out on that. Looking forward to my paycheck coming up, going down. But that's a concern to me as well, right? The noise and the traffic going through. The hospital actually are great neighbors. They were great neighbors. And the ambulance dispatch that's there continue to be great neighbors, and they don't run their sirens and they don't speed through the neighborhood. So I would like that same kind of consideration, right? And I don't think it's fair. I think it's a false equivalency to compare those two things together, because I think their impact is very different. The second thing I'm very concerned about is the thing that's being brought up. I love the concern about immigration, and I hear you, Chief Dekoff, when you say it's not our job to enforce those things. And my concern is that I think it is very obvious to all of us that at a federal level, our democracy is like currently being dismantled. I think everybody can see that. And that is a real and genuine concern. And that impacts our community, right? As much as we want to say, oh, we're all, we're this community and we all take care of each other. That is wonderful. And I hear you, it's not your job. But my feeling is, what if it becomes your job? What if you are told it is your job? And that makes me very concerned about having a civil enforcement arm of the government in my neighborhood. That doesn't make me feel safe. That doesn't make me feel comfortable, right? That doesn't make me feel good being in my neighborhood at this time in our history. That's how I feel. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we are out of time, and I want to thank the Summit School principal who joined us second year in a row. Tyler, thank you so much for being here and for opening the school after hours above and beyond the call of duty. And I know your call is already deep and wide. So thank you for hosting this as a community space, and thank you all for being with us.